All right, let's bring in our guest. This gentleman ranks second all-time in NFL history for passing yards, passing touchdowns, and pass completions, but first all-time in shouting the phrase, "Who dat?" A Super Bowl champ, a Super Bowl MVP, Walter Payton Man of the Year, also Comeback Player of the Year winner. Let's all lick our fingers, rub them together, and welcome the great Drew Brees. What's happening, Drew?
You know what? I get I get made fun of more for that, during my career than I did anything. They're like, why do you lick your fingers so much? I was like, it became such a habit. Like literally I found myself licking my fingers after I threw the ball. I'm like, why am I doing that? I don't know. It's just wired.
Did this start in middle school or not until you became a pro?
No. Like, if I'm having to turn pages, and they get dry, like I'll lick my fingers all the time. And it's just, it's just that habit of like, you're always thinking as a QB, grip, right? You're hyper conscious of that. And maybe even more so in New Orleans, just because, you go through training camp when it's 1,000 degrees outside and you're sweating like crazy. The center's sweating like crazy. He's snapping this ball that's like it just came out of the swamp. And you're having to like get a grip on that. Like literally I'd find myself dropping back at times, wiping my hand on my towel as I'm dropping back and then like trying to grip the ball. So you have moments where you're trying to be dry and then you get in the dome and it's a drier atmosphere. And so now you need just a little bit of tack on your hands. So then you're licking your fingers. So yeah.
Right. It's just a habit for him. Well, you'll be happy to know that the crew here has bet over 3.5 finger licks on this segment. So you do with that what you will.
We're at 1 right now.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I mean, listen, I love a good prank. I've orchestrated like hundreds on Jimmy Kimmel Live, but I didn't know about this. You throughout your career, you and Sean Payton had a prank war. Who do you feel got the best of who?
This is a pretty epic one. There was a lot of them with SP, but like SP would bust into our QB meetings, right? When we're like trying to get ready for an opponent and we're stressed out, like what are we gonna do if we get this look and that? And he'd come in with some story, right? Like he'd bust in the door and he'd be like, "Hey, so he had just got this new house in New Orleans, and he was talking about this shower head in his shower that he could, normally there's regulation on the shower heads as to how many gallons per minute will come out of the shower head, right? It's just something that municipalities will do or the utility companies to like make sure, they mandate certain things so you can't be overusing water, right? So he had somehow figured out a way to like do something to the shower head where he was getting like 3 times the gallons per minute, which was illegal. It was illegal, right, with the utility company to do that. So he comes in and tells us a story. He's like, "Oh, I'm taking the best showers now because I've got this shower head that pumps out like 3 times the number of gallons per minute." So we formulate a letter on the New Orleans Sewage and Water Board letterhead that basically says, through our research, we're showing that the water consumption at your home is significantly higher than others at these certain times of day when like we knew he was taking a shower. And we're going to have to like take fast action and you're in a lot of trouble for this. And we sent it to him. And then sure enough, like the next day he comes in and we had it like, whatever the verified, mail. So he comes in and this thing up, certified mail, and he reads us this letter and like, man, we're trying to hold it in, but he's starting to stress a little bit. He's like, man, what am I going to do about this? Like they say they're coming to my house to check all of my faucets and this and that. So that was a good one.
That's amazing. That is great. And then when he found out it was you guys, was there retaliation? Were you carrying pads for like 3 weeks or what?
No. Yeah, I'm sure there was some sort of pay. He would come up with his own stuff to get us back.
I love it. Now, Sean Payton's been praising Bo Nix all training camp. How do you think he's going to fit in with Coach Payton's offense?
I think he's going to be great. Here's a guy who had 60 starts in college football, which I think is significant. So he comes in very prepared. He's been in some high-level offenses playing against high-level competition. I think the way that Sean Payton, has described him to me is he's a great decision maker. he's been in these offenses where it does require very quick, decisive decisions, but also like his ability to be accurate, within, look, most passes are kind of within this 15-yard area, but like the decision making based on reading defenders, reading coverages, getting the ball out of your hands, avoiding sacks, avoiding negative plays, but also in the play action game, which I know Sean, is a big kind of hallmark to that system is, you want to establish the zone run scheme, and then all your play action comes off of that. And his ability to push the ball down the field accurately. Like, people have this perception that, hey, Bo Nix was in this offense where there's a bunch of bubble screens and all this other stuff. No, it wasn't. And he was required to push the ball down the field. He was required to read coverage and read defenders and make quick decisions and be accurate with the football. And he did that masterfully. And that's the hallmarks for this system as well with Sean Payton.
You said something interesting. When I asked you about Bo Nix, the first thing you said, you hung on, was the 60 games. Create for me the ideal NFL prospect in your mind. How old is he? Now we've seen 24-year-olds, 27-year-olds coming in. How old? How many starts? How many seasons? What conference? What type of offense? What do you see? What would you like?
Look, I love that you asked that question, because I think it's something that's extremely important, especially when you start looking at, why do half of the quarterbacks that are drafted in the first round end up not panning out the way that people hope? I think there's two really important factors. The first is, I think a guy needs at least 50 high-level starts before he's truly ready, right? And so whether he's getting that in college or it's a combination of college and pro, he needs 50 high-level starts. So look at a lot of the guys that maybe haven't had the success in the NFL that people hope for. In many cases, those guys had 15, 20, 22 starts in college. They came to the NFL. What they really needed was like 2 or 3 years to sit behind a really good starter, somebody who could mentor them. They could get a comfort level with the system. They could really learn and grow with a great coach or a great mentor. So the high level starts, to me, is really, really important. I think coming in and sitting for a year or two, or even 3, is necessary. But he's got to be in a situation where, man, he's got good QBs around him, because the QB room is very important, right? Like, give him some veterans, give him some mentorship, guys that can help him learn to be a pro, learn the nuances of the game, and then obviously having a great, coach, a guy like a Sean Payton or somebody of that caliber.
Yeah. I mean, and you did it. You sat behind Doug Flutie for was it a season?
It was the best thing that could have happened to me. It was the best thing that could have happened to me. And then he was my backup for 3 years. So I still had him as a mentor for me. So for 4 years, that was huge for my career.
Okay. So that was a very well thought out response. That said, who would you like for Offensive Rookie of the Year? I'll give you Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams. Let's just include the quarterbacks.
I think if I were to kind of predict, look, I think Caleb Williams is going to make some splash plays. I think he's going to do some things where you're saying, wow, he's the next Patrick Mahomes, right? And then there's going to be some struggles, right? Just because I don't think the team around him is necessarily as good as it's going to be, right? Look at Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young's a heck of a football player, but man, he was in a tough spot last year, right? On a team that's still building and still trying to fill some gaps, right? I think that's really where Chicago is, I think, more so than the other two. I think the one that's the team that's most in a position to win is the Denver Broncos. Like, I think they got some pieces, right? They got some pieces on offense. They've got a stout defense, right? They always say a quarterback's best friend is a great run game, and a great defense, right? Yeah, that's going to take a ton of pressure off you, right? So that's I think I would almost give the edge to Bo Nix just because of the team that's around him. At the same time, man, I watched Jaden Daniels grow and develop down at LSU for a couple of years, and I couldn't be more impressed with kind of the way that he's handled everything, the approach that he's taken with his preparation. I think he's a bit of a sleeper right now. Could have a phenomenal season too.
All right. Well, you know what? Then I'll bet all 3. You convinced me. I mean, as long as Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't light it up, I should be in okay shape.
That's what I want to see.
I have been breaking down all the divisions. The NFC South really has been such a strange division over the past few years. This could be, if no team reaches 10 wins, this would be the first time in history no team in a division has won 10 games 3 years in a row. Are you sure you don't want to come back?
It's tempting. Yeah, you know, I know the perception that comes along with that, you know, like that, hey, it's a crummy division, or that it's, you know, it's up for grabs. I mean, it's definitely up for grabs, but I think the division is going to be tougher than people expect. I think Cousins is going to make an impact in Atlanta. I think Bijan Robinson is one of the most exciting young players in the league. He's on my fantasy team, right? So cheering for him for 15 games this year, just not the 2 where he's playing the Saints. So I think Atlanta's gonna be much more stout. I think Carolina with Bryce in his second year, I think they've made improvements, and now you got a new staff, new system, and an exciting QB that's in his second year. I think the Saints are poised, you know, still a very solid defense offensively. They've got a lot of playmakers. Derek Carr in this new system with Clint Kubiak, I think it's a great fit. And then, you know, look, Tampa won the division last year, right?
Yeah. So, and a playoff game. Yeah.
Yeah, in a playoff game, right?
I want to talk about rule changes. One in particular, this onside kick thing. You have to, I don't even know what it is. First of all, you can't do it except if you're losing in the fourth quarter at a certain point. You have to point to the person you're kicking it at. They have to jump up. I don't know. It's insane how they've now really micromanaged this onside kick. And I want to ask you specifically, because obviously a big play in your Super Bowl win against the Colts was the surprise onside kick at the start of that second half. Saints recovered. You would not be able to do that this season. So what do you think of this new rule?
Look, it's tough, right? But maybe we go back to, hey, you're putting the ball down, you're letting your team run, time it up. And man, there's collisions and everybody's going for the ball, but man, that's one of the most exciting plays in football. Maybe you go back to just, because how often is a team going to do that, right? It's only going to be at the end of these close games where some, you know, so I'm sure there's some stats out there that say how often it's going to happen. I think teams would be willing to, you know, kind of risk that in order to increase their chances of getting an onside kick.
All right, listen, before you go, I've got one more question for you, Drew. We're calling this segment Cuz's Conundrum. Cuz's Conundrum. I still can't even say it. I'm going to present you with a conundrum. One, there's no way you faced before, okay? And we're going to see how you handle it, all right?
Yeah.
All right. You come from a family of attorneys, so you know a little bit about the law. Let's say you are now the Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court. Judge Brees has to send one of the following people to federal prison for life. Is it Rams defensive back Nickel Roby-Coleman for attempted manslaughter on Saints wide receiver Tommy Lee Lewis in the 2018 NFC Championship game, or that game's referee Bill Vinovich for gross and utter depraved indifference for human life for not calling the flagrant penalty? Your Honor, what say you?
Well, it wasn't Bill Vinovich. His responsibility was to watch the quarterback, right? So he had to fight for me. It was the other two guys, right? Nickel Roby was just being a football player. He was just reacting, right? Now, he knows he was guilty. In fact, had you asked him at that moment, was that pass interference? Like, he looks around, he's waiting for the flag. Like, go back and look at it. He's looking around, he's waiting for he's guilty. He would have pled guilty. So I wouldn't have had to worry about that. Guilty for pass interference. It's the two officials that literally were standing on the sideline, reached in their pocket. Watch it. They grab their flags. They look at each other, and they put them back in. Those are those two guys. Those two guys would be going to prison.
Those guys. They share a cell. You're saying, okay.
Guilty.
I'm good with that. I think that's fine. I think you'd make a good justice. I personally am I had a lot of money on this game, and I don't have to relive it any more than I already did. 20-20, under 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Disgusting. I think the worst no call in the history of sports. I really do. But you've made your decision already. You're good.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're working on with Dos Equis.
Yeah, so this is fun. So we've got a campaign called Go for Dos. So we're encouraging all Division I football teams, fan bases, we want to go for 2 more this year than we did last year. So last year, Division I football went for 2 392 times. If they go for 2 more than that this year, Dos Equis will give away for free up to 1 million beers to college football fans.
I like it. I think it's a fabulous campaign. I do have a question though. Does in overtime, eventually it's 2-point conversions, right? After the first possession, right? Second possession. Do those count?
That counts.
That counts.
Okay. That's going for Dos.
So let's go for Dos. Let's root for overtime in a lot of these games. And then we get some built-in 2-point conversion attempts, right?
Exactly.
There you go. All right, good luck.
Playoff should count for double. Those should be Dos on top of the Dos.
Oh, right.
Double.
I think that's Quattro. I think you just signed an endorsement deal with the Dos Quattro or something. Quattro Equis. I don't know what it is. All right.